Well, welcome back to another week of Along the Journey. For those of you in the ROCC Journey groups, but also for all followers of Jesus who are following a call to discipleship and disciple making. This week we're along Blanket Creek here in Clemmons, North Carolina. But more importantly, we are within the foundations and the basement slab walls of this new home being constructed. You know, several years ago we lived in a subdivision where new homes were being constructed around us. And one day the property right next door to us, from our bedroom window we could look at, was beginning new home construction. And I think it was the first time in my life that I realized how much went into the foundation of that home. I mean, not all, even the materials, like all the steel rebar and the cement and the slabs and the braces and the supports and the piping, but the time and the effort and the energy. You think, goodness, are you ever going to build above ground? And of course, we all know the consequences of a poor foundation. There can be many issues down the road, some that are hidden and only come out later, some that are not so hidden and are very obvious and become issues right away. Well, much like a poor foundation, we obviously realize how critical a foundation can be to our faith, particularly in the idea of disciple making and discipleship. And our foundation is really being spoken to, and we are reflecting back on in these first 6 weeks of Journey in a section called In Pursuit of Gospel Living. And in this first section, in the second unit this week, we continue with the idea of glory, that glory, grace, and truth really help form the idea of the foundation of the gospel. Well, glory is a word in Scripture that means a lot of things. And we think about it to God. We think about His majesty and the awesomeness of God. We think about honoring God and His praise. But what about glory in us? See, glory in us really is the word that speaks to a fullness or a perfected state or a satisfaction that is perfected and complete. And, you know, that glory was designed into us. That glory we fell from. That glory we now search for, and we only can find it in one place. Jesus Christ and God filling that lost glory back, redeeming us, restoring us, is the only place we can be fully satisfied. In fact, theologians have a word for it in Scripture. They call it glorification. The progress or process of our salvation begins with being justified and then sanctified in this world in our discipleship, and then glorified in the next world. Paul says in Romans 8 that he is justified, he has also glorified. Peter talks about it as being the imperishable, the undefiled inheritance of eternity in heaven, that glorified state. And so as we continue to work on our foundation, we should always think back on it so that we don't have any hidden consequences down the road, so that there aren't any obvious consequences in our life, in our testimony, and in our faith, in our doctrine, in our understanding of Scripture. Well, this week, the three key takeaways that we're going to look at through our journey groups is, number one, we are going to look at this idea of glory once again, and as someone who has come to a saving relationship with Christ, making sure that we're living in that pursuit of satisfaction, that we're living in the satisfaction of Jesus only, that we are not seeking it elsewhere. The second point this week is going to be the idea of mission. And really the question is almost as if you were to walk into Jesus Incorporated and Jesus is CEO, what would the mission statement be on his wall? We can think to Mark 10 talks about the fact that he came to serve and not to be served. We can look at Luke 19 that says he came to seek and to save. And if we're to be Christ-like, then we need to have a very similar mission. So we're going to talk about mission. And then thirdly, this week, you're going to be asked to do a 21-day worship. Now, many groups have found that the first few weeks of foundation building are quite overwhelming. So many groups have set these 21 days aside until the Christmas holiday break, where many groups will take 3 weeks off. So feel free to do that. If you think this 21-day worship activity and exercise that is presented is a bit overwhelming, save it for Christmas. It's okay. It'll be fine. But walk through the acronym of praise and worship and understand that in your materials. So I hope you have a wonderful week in Journey. I hope we continue to build on our foundations and reflect back on them. Have a great trip along the journey.